Hey, what's up? This is Will Safar with Abysmal Hymns, and I'm back with Reza Mills from Clean Sheet, Sleeping Shaman, all that good stuff. And this time, as promised, we're going to go over our top five post-hardcore albums. A lot of mine, I gotta say, are based in the 90s, and that is probably no mistake because this genre really came into fruition full force in the 90s. I think there's some bands that kind of preceded that, like Husker Du, who, went on. Obviously, Sugar is a big influence on this type of thing. And I mean, it's kind of like, as the name suggests, it's after these hardcore bands and how they progressed into a different style of music that's more melodic than hardcore, and there's a lot more like sonic nuance. And I think that granted, there's always a revival of everything. So we got new bands that are playing this sort of stuff too, that tend to go with a blueprint and end up sounding more like if Butch Vig produced Bad Religion. But um, I think that there's a little more depth in kind of the music that comes out of the scene. Um, and it can be heavy. It can be typically it's not that dark, but obviously there's going to be some albums on my list that are. And yeah, so how do you feel about that definition?
You've pretty much hit the nail on the head. As the name would imply, as with post-punk, guess what? Post-hardcore came after hardcore. So a lot of these bands obviously moved away from, the battering drums and the screaming and all of that. Although there's an element of that too. As you were saying, it's a lot more nuanced, a lot more considered, a lot denser, maybe complex. But again, it's one of those genres. It's a horrible name, post-hardcore. What the hell does that mean, apart from the obvious? It's one of those terms like noise rock. It's just trying to describe something that's quite indescribable. It's just noisy hard rock in essence, but with a bit of punk thrown in. And of course, you mentioned Husker Du, which is a good name to cite. I would also say, obviously, bands like Fugazi, Quicksand, and all of those, Jawbox, etc. And I think I'm like you. I would say the overwhelming majority of my choices are from probably the 90s because that was such a big foundation point for the genre. We mustn't forget, of course, there are bands from the 2000s or 2010s, but I'm not really that familiar with some of them. Some of them incorporate a really horrible emo sound. Not the good emo from
Right,
before, hey,
yeah,
but that horrible, what do they call it? Screamo now. Some of
right.
that stuff, god awful. Poison the Well. It's just not my thing at all. But yeah, so you were spot on. I don't really have too much to add from there, but I'm looking forward to our choices, that's for sure.
All right, well, let's get started with your first pick, and these are not in
Right.
order. These are just albums that are the most impactful for us.
All right, so I'm going to start with a Tumwater, Washington band called Carp, Karp, otherwise known as Kill All Redneck Pricks. I mean, what a name. And this was a trio. And you might know them. One of them, Jared Warren, went on to the bands such as Big Business and the Melvins and the Whip. And what I love about these guys, yes, they were definitely influenced by the Melvins when you hear their music. There's no denying that. It's got that sludginess, but there's a tremendous sense of humor and weirdness too. And yeah, they were just outcasts, really. Three very weird dudes with a very strange sense of humor. And the album I'm going to recommend is their 1995 album Suplex, and it's got one of those. I don't know anything about sports, but it's got one of those. What was it like? One of those wrestling belt things that you wear. I think if you've won it, I don't know what you call those things. Um, on the
Like a
cover,
championship belt.
that's the one. Thank you very much. And the songs are so over the top and kind of silly, but again, there's a load of poppy hooks in there as well and quite diverse. So, yeah, I would definitely recommend everyone check out Carp. I think they're one of those long lost bands. And the one I recommend to start with is Suplex.
I used to have one of their albums on cassette.
Hmm.
Don't remember which one it was. It was in the 90s. and
Yeah.
that's a murky time. So that not all albums kind of registered in the brain cells and were retained, but I do remember the band. I remember this, if I'm thinking of the right band, that there was like a really husky vocal tone. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, so from what I've
Yeah.
heard and recall of them, I liked them. They were on, I forget what label they were on, but it
I
was
think on K Records actually of all
yep,
labels.
okay, that makes
I mean,
sense.
K Records, that's like that twee indie sort of stuff, but which isn't necessarily my thing, beat happening and all of that sort of thing. But so an odd fit for the label, but good on Calvin Johnson for signing them up. I mean, crikey.
Right.
So yeah, I mean they only really did three albums and a compilation. So if you are gonna dig into their catalog, it won't take you long.
Cool. Well, my first pick is going to be a band. It's going to be the oldest album on my list. It actually precedes the 90s by a little bit. It's a 1986 album. And this, I mean, I think that this kind of defines post-hardcore in our explanation of progressing past hardcore.
Hmm.
This band progressed past post-hardcore into alternative rock eventually. Their first album was definitely could have been on our crossover list, and it is October File by Die Kreutzen.
Oh wow, yes. What an album.
And
Good
I was
choice.
a little split about it because I was like, well, it is kind of metal. I mean, it almost sounds like Voivod, but then there's enough of that tone, it's really just the vocals.
Yes.
There's enough of the guitar tone that you could match it up and say, well, this could be on a Husker Du album, or it has that sonic quality.
Yeah, they might have suffered from being too pioneering, really. That's why
Right.
they never quite broke through. They were a bit too early for grunge, obviously.
Oh yeah, I mean, in '86, this album sounds like it could have come out yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. It's and that album cover, what on earth is that? I've been studying that for years. I cannot understand for a
There,
second what.
have you not read that book about them that
Oh
just
yeah.
came out? Because they talk a little bit about that, about the guy, because they have the same artist that did all the albums,
Hmm.
and he made like sculptures and all types of crazy stuff to do that. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, it's
That book
pretty
is on
bizarre.
order for me, so I'm still waiting for that to land.
Right. Um, but yeah, so they were definitely way ahead of their time, way
Yeah.
ahead of anybody's time. So, what's your number two?
Okay, next up, I'm going to be a bit patriotic. I've got to have a British band in there. And I've chosen the band McCluskey, uh, and their most recent album, in fact, which I reviewed for the Sleeping Shaman. So obviously, I'm bigging myself up there, which sounds narcissistic, but hey, you got to do it. And that record, which I do recommend, it's their first in God, what would it be? Like 15 years, maybe more. The album's called The World Is Still Here, and So Are We. And if you don't know McCluskey's style, if you like bands like Shellac, especially that sort of abrasive style, the kind of very weird, cynical sense of humor. I think everything's pretty much in lowercase, but I can't remember. Um, and you've got songs, I mean, ridiculous titles like Kafkaesque novelist Franz Kafka, autofocus on the prime directive, unpopular parts of a pig. That's where we're going with this. And again, it's just very abrasive, very sarcastic. I really love the main guy, Falco. He's just a really, really funny, interesting vocalist. I recommend all his other projects as well. Too many to mention here. So yeah, if you like Shellac, maybe a bit of the Jesus Lizard in spots, then you'll definitely dig what McCluskey have to offer.
Yeah, I like that album. I checked it out. I hadn't heard the previous albums. I just knew there's a big buzz around it and had talked to people that had gone to see them in their reunion tour. And I was
Yeah.
like, all right, let me give these guys a shot. And yeah, it didn't disappoint. I mean, there was a little bit of an angular
Yeah.
thing that reminded me of King Missile at times.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I dug it. It was cool.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to check out another record, I recommend McCluskey Do Dallas. That's a really, really cool record. I think that was 2005. 2004, 2005, something like that. And they're a brilliant band to see live. I saw them, God, about 4 months ago, and they were a hell of a lot of fun. So yeah, definitely wants to check out live too.
Cool, cool. Well, I will go ahead and get one of my expected picks out of the way for number
Okay.
two. Somebody had to mention these guys. We already did mention them, but obviously have one of their albums on our list. It's probably one of my favorite bands. It
Mm.
is from 1991. It's Steady Diet of Nothing by Fugazi. Um, I guess I like this album best because it has more groove to it, and the songwriting is like airtight and hooky without being like poppy.
There's
You know?
also a bit of dub in there almost. There's like a
Yeah,
heavy, very heavy dub influence. And you know what? Everyone always goes for repeater. I'm like you. This is my favorite of theirs.
yeah. Long
Um,
Division is almost like a power ballad, but
yeah, for sure.
if they were gonna have one.
Better.
Um, and the
Yeah.
vocal, I mean, the vocals have a lot of purpose. It's just not screaming, you know.
Yeah,
I mean, even on the first album, it does, you know, like songs like Suggestion from the first album do. But here's just more nuanced.
absolutely. Yeah, I think they're. I mean, I haven't actually listened to them for quite a while, actually. I did go through a phase of listening to them nearly every day, and I guess when you do that, you end up going the other extreme. But I will have to renew my Fugazi playlist and give them another shot. Yeah, that's probably my favorite record, even though my first record by them was actually The Argument.
Right. Okay.
I would say this is also up there as one of my favorites. Yeah,
Funny enough,
cool.
so I saw him on this tour, Steady
Hmm.
Diet Nothing tour, and then I saw him on the Argument tour.
Yeah,
And
I sadly never got to see them. I take it they were pretty good.
yeah, they were great. The weird as like later on, because I saw them three times. First time was in the 90s, then later there I wouldn't say reunions, just later tours. They
Hmm.
had two drummers, so that was, interesting.
Oh, right. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So Brendan had someone backing him up as well.
Right? Yeah.
Guess what other band have once had two drummers? Genesis. In the
Yeah.
early 80s. There you go. I don't want to say Fugazi was inspired by Genesis. What an
Yeah,
insult, but
maybe. They don't need, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
All right, what
Cool.
you got?
Classic. Okay, well, actually, I mean, I think these guys are from DC, like Fugazi. I'm just double checking. Yes, they are, and I'm talking about Girls Against Boys. A very, very underappreciated band. They came from the ashes of the band came from another one called Soulside, who I also recommend. That band was signed to Discord, and I don't know if Girls Against Boys were on Discord, maybe initially, but the album I'm going to talk about, House of GVSB, as it's called, was actually put out by Touch and Go, another great label. And I really love this record. This was the first one I heard of theirs, and it was very, very well regarded by critics. And their best-selling record, best-selling record, 70,000 copies worldwide. I mean, yeah, for a band like this, I guess that's pretty good. And I'm sure I remember an interview. I heard about them because I read an interview with Shirley Manson of Garbage. I mean, I'm not a fan of theirs, but and she talked about being really into these guys. I mean, she liked them on an aesthetic sense as well. I think she found them pretty hot, I guess. But also really dug the music too. And the music, and it's funny she should say that music has a kind of sexiness to it, especially this record. There's some sort of very, very slinky parts to it, which kind of add to the band's otherwise abrasive sound. I definitely recommend starting with this label if anyone doesn't know who these guys are. This is a good starting point, I'd say.
Cool. Yeah, that works for me. I mean, they're one of the bands that have always been on the periphery.
Yeah,
I heard them over the years. I mean, I worked in a record store in college, so you
sure.
know, that was when they were in their heyday.
Hmm,
So yeah, I caught it in the periphery, but it wasn't an album that I like owned at any point in time.
sure.
But yeah, I mean, I respect them, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, to you and anyone who hasn't really invested with them, they're not one of those bands that were the most prominent. They're not like Fugazi, who were like written about everywhere, so everyone knows who they are. Or maybe a little bit in the underground, even
Hmm.
further in the underground than a band like Fugazi. Imagine that, right?
Yep.
So, so yeah, I can understand why they would pass you by and stuff. But yeah, but if you get a chance, I'd definitely invest a little bit of time in them. I think you'd get a big kick out of
Yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah. I'll give him a shot. All right.
Sure.
So my number three is another kind of predictable one. Um, it's from the 90s, 93. It's a band called Quicksand and their album Slip,
Ah,
which,
brilliant.
this is like, I remember hearing this first and thinking like, well, they're like a more punk rock Tool,
Hmm?
um, because of all the palm muted kind of things. And the vocals were melodic but commanding,
Hmm.
great songwriters. They came from the ashes of Gorilla Biscuits, so
Yeah.
definitely they have a hardcore background. So that's where they evolved too. So, and they're another band that always kind of like, you know, Girls Against Boys, where you would think that they would be bigger than they were.
Mm.
But I mean, the bass player was in the Deftones for a little bit, so there's that. But
Yes, so Sergio, that's right. Yeah, yeah. I love Walter Schifrels. I think that's how you say it.
mm,
I love his songwriting. I think he's a really, really good musician. I mean, I love Rival Schools,
yep.
but Quicksand, I always thought of, well, especially that record, as like if you take a mix of Fugazi and Helmet in a way,
Hmm.
especially some of the sludgier riffing reminds me of Helmet.
I can see
Um,
that.
Yeah, yeah, especially the title track as well. Yeah, I mean, I love Quicksand. Again, they're not a band I listen to regularly, but I always enjoy them whenever I do. I think, yeah, I'm a huge influence. Again, probably an influence on the Deftones, who you just mentioned,
Right,
and a
yeah, for sure.
ton of other bands. Yeah. I mean, I even like Manic Compression. I've not really listened to their newer post-reunion stuff, so I can't vouch
I
for
heard
that.
one of them. It was pretty decent.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
his voice still sounds good, so that's really all I need.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. I'll have to spend a bit more time with those later records because I'm so familiar with the classic era, of
Right,
course. But
right.
yeah, great choice. Nice one.
All right, what you got?
What have I got? Okay, I'm going to go something even more obscure and maybe a similar-ish time scale. It's a band called Tar, Tar, and I believe they're a Chicago group. And the way that I describe them is it's kind of in the vein of sort of bands like Big Black. Maybe I think of them, and I know this is blasphemous to say, as a slightly more engaging Jesus Lizard for me, although I do love the Jesus Lizard. And there's also elements of classic punk, such as the Stooges and the Sex Pistols in there. And again, they have that sort of weird angular sound, just very, very hooky as well. Um, they weren't around for very long, maybe 6, 7 years. The album that I'm going for is 1991's Jackson. And I especially recommend, I mean, you can find it on YouTube, obviously, like you can everything these days. The track Goeth, which is you will be playing that thing over and over and over again. The hooks are massive on that. It's so catchy. And yeah, just another one of those criminally overlooked bands for me. I've always had a big, big soft spot for them.
Yeah, I remember in the 90s there was that phase of bands like Tar and Tad, and they had big capital letter names with like they were like a little word like that.
Yeah.
And I listened to, there's one of the ones I caught in the periphery. I
Mm.
think they might have even played with the Melvins and Guar once. I don't
Wouldn't
know.
surprise me.
It would have been about 91, so that sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, another band, Respect, haven't really listened to them a ton.
Yeah, and again, as with Quicksand, they had their roots in hardcore. They came from a band called, well, which I've never listened to, called Blatant Descent. So again, what we were talking about, post-hardcore coming out of hardcore. Well, here's yet another example of that.
So here's a band we talked about. You brought up emo in passing,
Hmm.
and I know that there's bands like that get labeled as post-hardcore, like what's that one huge band? I think they're from England. Bring Me the Horizon. So
God, yeah.
labeled as post-hardcore, they're like pop.
Laughably, yeah.
Um, but this this band is, I guess, after Rites of Spring would be what I consider the first emo or the most important emo band. But they
Mm,
said when they made this album that they wanted to make a slow hardcore album.
mm,
So, I think that kind of defines it. A lot of people know the other band that two of the members are in that are
yeah.
unfortunately called the Foo Fighters. Uh, but this album is from 1994 and it's
Yes.
Diary by Sunny Day Real Estate.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Is that Diary by any
Mhm.
chance? Sorry. Yeah. I jumped in there, but yeah, I'm very familiar with that record. I remember listening to it on repeat.
Yes, great. I mean, I love the vocals.
Yeah.
There was a, and for I gave him a pass. I just thought that Jeremy Enoch went crazy, which he did when he made that Return of the Fraud King album. Uh,
Yeah, that's an interesting album.
but yeah, I remember people being like, "Oh, you like them? He's really into Jesus."
So
And
what?
I was like,
Whatever.
"Well, it just gave me a mental freeze for a little bit. Kind of like when I would listen to straight edge bands, like
Cool.
Converge. I remember people telling me, well, they came out of the straight edge scene. Um, and yeah, so, but I don't care at this point. I mean, it's a great album. I like everything they've done, but the first two albums are the only ones that I would really label as post-hardcore. Then they're kind
Yeah.
of like the Croydon, and they evolved even beyond that.
Sure, sure. I think that yeah, it's is it Jeremy? I can't even pronounce his
Unique.
surname. Inick or whatever his name is. Yeah, yeah, very interesting guy. Again, the Frog King album is very odd, but very cool. Yeah, again, this is actually what caught me about that album was a very cutesy cover. If if anyone
Oh,
knows,
with the Fisher Price people.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Fisher Price. Yeah, very sweet album cover. But I'll tell you what, it's not so sweet sounding. It's quite heavy, in
Right? Like
fact.
emotionally heavy.
Yeah, yeah. It might look all cutesy, but this is not saves the day. This has got some teeth to it.
Right, yeah. And I remember I had a t-shirt of that. It was
Yeah.
like an outtake of that album cover. It wasn't the album cover, but it was done in that style. It was Sunny Day Real Estate, but it had those little Lego people outside of their house watching it burn.
I thought I was being all cool, and then my mum saw this that Diaries album cover. She went, "Oh, that's cute." I was like, "Oh, great." There you go. All credibility destroyed. Poor
Uh,
mum. No, cool. Yeah, Sunny Day Real Estate, classic band.
all right, what you got?
All right, so next up, I've got. I'm a huge fan of SST, and pretty much the entire catalog. Well, maybe not so the Greg Ginn solo albums, but um, a band called Saccharine Trust, who I think they were like catalog number 3 or 4 or something. So one of the very early bands on the label. And the album that I'm going for, I suppose it's an EP of sorts. It's called Pagan Icons, and it's a record that Kurt Cobain listed as one of his favorite 50 records of all time. And what I love about them is, yes, even though we're touring with Flag and all those other bands, the Stains, etc., they sound nothing like that. They're very jazz influenced in places. I like Joey Baeza is a fantastic guitarist, very inventive. The main guy, Jack Brewer, I like him. He's maybe it could be argued later on gets a little bit carried away with himself, a little bit too much spoken word, sort of stuff. But still an interesting vocalist. And yeah, yeah, again, I think that they're one of those bands that really, alongside, as you say, Husker Du, maybe the Minutemen, etc., kind of pioneered that whole post-hardcore sound because it was so different to what was going on in 1981. And yeah, so that is my that is one of my foundational bands for this whole genre: Saccharine Trust and Pagan Icons.
Awesome. Well, there we go. So my number five pick is a probably the most obscure of the bands. I saved them for last. They're also the heaviest. This borders on being a metal album, and maybe it is. But but in some way it's kind of, I was about to say it's the most hopeful on this list, but my favorite song, the lyrics, the kind of chorus of it is when I said that I would die before you, I meant in front of. So there's a pretty like depressive element to it. It's the 1996 album Innocence by Only Living Witness.
Oh, I'm not familiar. I've heard the name, but I don't think I've heard
Yeah,
them.
the singer is really great. He has a super melodic but commanding voice. It has kind of a growly husk to it, but without, it's not growling. I mean, he's kind of more like a Danzig croon at times without the Elvis.
Oh, okay, cool.
And they're
I've
super
never.
punchy. I mean, he's done some guest vocals for a lot of different metal bands because they're kind of like acid bath. Like when they were out, nobody knew who they were or cared. And now, over time, they've kind of gained more respect. Um, I know, particularly in like the hardcore scene, these guys. But yeah,
Hmm.
they only had two albums. This one's worth checking out. It's from 1996 called Innocence, and it's Only Living Witness.
Cool. I'm just looking them up now, actually, just to have a quick read of them. Yeah, I can see they're on Century Media. That's a pretty big label.
Yeah,
Mm.
which is
Yeah.
weird. Like, I don't know why they didn't break through. Um, I mean, in some ways, it's kind of like Life of Agony in the sense that, Life of Agony was perhaps just kind of didn't fit in the mold. They weren't hardcore, but they weren't a straight up metal band either.
Mm.
These
Mm.
guys are like that. They're kind of post-hardcore. They're kind of like Helmet in some ways, but then they'll have, it sounds like they took a bong hit before they wrote some guitar riffs here and there because they have
Yeah,
kind of like
the
a
acid bath thing.
Black
Yeah.
Sabbathy vibe.
Cool. I'll definitely have to give them a listen. Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, yeah, worthwhile.
Yeah,
So what
very.
what albums were kind of on the cusp for you?
Yeah, I was kind of. God, there's so many albums. I chose maybe somewhat predictable. I don't know. I chose Glassjaw and their debut, "Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Silence," and I think this, to me, it came out at a time now I was listening to some really terrible, embarrassing music, but these guys I remember getting talked up a lot in Kerrang, and I gave it a listen. I was like, you know what, this is really different to new metal. It kind of got lumped into that a tiny bit.
Hmm.
But I could tell that it wasn't really, there was no DJ there, there was no really bad rapping. It was just really angular and angry. It was kind of like Quicksand. It was kind of, what else was he influenced by? Like Bad Brains and all of that.
I can hear a little Faith No More.
Yeah, Faith No More. Yep, thanks. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, this was their debut album. And, there's been some criticism of it, including by the main guy, Daryl, because, some of the lyrics were particularly unpleasant and bitter. But I guess it just added to the whole feel of the record. This was a record I used to play whenever I got broken up with, so it kind of fit quite nicely in a weird sort of way. Um, so yeah, this was kind of an honorable mention, I suppose. I haven't really listened to them for quite a few years, but it is an album that I enjoyed quite a lot at the time. So,
Right, yeah, for me it would be a toss up between the Pony Express record by Shudder to Think, which we talked about,
mm,
it's such an oddball. It's more like an alternative rock. And then
yeah,
the other thing on the opposite end of the spectrum, which another band that doesn't have a category, would be Up in Them Guts by Planes Mistaken for Stars, uh,
okay.
which is almost hardcore. So it's almost too hard. It's harder than the Dicroitzen. So I was like, no, I'll just put Dicroitzen and leave those guys.
I'm trying to think if they put out a new
They
album.
did. They
Like,
had an album last year.
yeah, that I thought so. Mark
Well, the
from
singer's dead, so that was put out post-more.
Oh, okay. Right. Oh, right. Okay. So it's kind of new, but
Right. Which,
kind of.
I can respect that. I mean, that guy was super depressed, and so it came out in his music, and
Is that called Do You Still Love Me? Is that the one?
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Mark from the Shaman, he covered that one. Yeah. And
Yeah, that's a
I
good album.
and I covered it was that came out at a similar time to the Gouge Away record, which I covered. So yeah, I kind of
Right.
remember being in the background. Again, a band I've heard of, sort of, but I've never really properly ventured into
Yeah, they're
them.
worth checking out. The singer is, it's kind of, he has a really almost Tom Waitsy kind of voice.
Okay,
Um, so he kind of howls a lot.
cool.
So that creates a almost like the emo Motorhead feel, is
Wow.
what I
Okay,
would say.
that's interesting. Well, I'm just reading a brief excerpt from an interview we did. He said he listens to Thin Lizzy, Black Flag, and Marvin Gaye.
All right.
So there you go,
Yeah,
three
I can
influences
see that.
there.
There's more to Black Flag and Thin Lizzy than Marvin Gaye.
Yeah, that's
They,
quite
funny enough, they covered a Kate Bush song, and it was pretty crazy
wow.
because
Oh
it was
yeah,
just him and guitar, basically.
wow. Yeah, just actually, there's a guy called Matt Bellinger. I see. I've heard of him from something. I can't remember what. He's passed away as well. God, dangerous band to be in,
Yeah,
seemingly.
you
Poor
know.
guy. But yeah, cool. Okay. Yeah. Again,
Um,
I'll have to
so
venture.
I think next time we're gonna do the kind of first wave of black metal.
Sounds good to me.
So that'll be a distinct turn from what where we are today. But
Yeah, it'll be interesting where we go from there, even. But yes,
yeah,
absolutely. It's yeah, I can think of a few names to hand. So looking forward to
sure.
that one.
Well, cool. Well, thanks for coming, and we will see you guys next week.